ahead and call this meeting to order. Lisa, would you please take roll?
Commissioner Gish?
Here.
Commissioner O'Neill? Commissioner Lewis? Commissioner Zimmerman?
Here.
Commissioner Laparne?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson? Commissioner Reisinger?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. Can you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? And then we'll have our next. Thank you. We are going to take one item out of order today. We're going to jump to item 5B, which is the annual open meeting law parliamentary procedure training provided by Carl. The city attorney's office will provide the annual open meeting law and parliamentary procedure training to the commission members.
Hello, I'm Carl Cooper. I'm the city attorney. With me is Amy Schreiber. She's the deputy city attorney. We're going to kind of tag team this a little bit. This is just training that's required for current members, but brand new members. We need to go through this at the beginning of any session that you start, just so you're aware of what the laws are and the rules are, so you don't violate any of them. One thing I always like to say is part of open meeting law is making sure everybody can hear you. So when you're talking, make sure your microphone's on green. Make sure you're talking into it. I'm famously talk really well into it till I turn my head like this and I talk to somebody else and it loses it. But just try and remember that that's there. See if you can kind of hear it in the background. It helps everybody. And I'm gonna let Amy start with the presentation.
Good afternoon. As Carl said, my name is Amy Schreiber. I'm the deputy city attorney. Carl is my boss. We're going to start out with open meeting law. This is straight from Arizona statute. It's the public policy of the state that meetings of public bodies, which is you guys, are to be conducted openly and that notices and agendas be provided for such meetings which contain such information as is reasonably necessary to inform the public of the matters to be discussed and engaged. So to be discussed and decided. So what does that mean? The public's business must be conducted in public so that the public is aware of what's going on with government, increased transparency, things like that. Why open meeting law matters: it protects the public and preserves their right to participate in government. It protects public officials and maintains integrity of the government and builds trust between the government and its citizens. Who must comply? You all must comply. This is a public body. It's encompassed in the definition. Commissions are under there, so you must comply with open meeting law. What constitutes a meeting? Obviously, this is a meeting. This is what we think of as a meeting. But if you see in that definition, it says the gathering in person or through technological devices. And we'll talk about that in a few slides, exactly what that means. Things have obviously changed a little bit with the rise of social media and things like that. And it says that it's in person or through technological devices of a quorum of people. And that quorum is defined on the next slide. That's a majority of the members of a board or commission. So for a 7-person commission, that's 4 people. Like I just said, technological devices can make a meeting. Things like texting, phone calls, email, social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, all those types of things. So an example is if you were to get an email from staff about a matter that was likely to come before you guys that you were going to discuss, that the public could come and hear discussion on, and you hit, reply all, and the number of people that were on the reply all made a quorum, you could be in danger of violating open meeting law. Once again, if you were to post something on Facebook that was something that was going to come before you guys, and then one of you commented, I'm in favor of that too, and then someone likes it, and so on, creates a quorum, you could be violating open meeting law. So it's just best to refrain from using electronic communications to discuss with members matters that are likely to come before the public body for action. There's something called splintering the quorum. I call this like a game of telephone. So if one of you talks to one person about, hey, I really like this, I think I'm gonna vote yes on it, and then that person you spoke with goes and talks to someone else, then you've created a quorum, and again, you could be in violation of open meeting law. So, another facet of open meeting law is informing the public of when meetings are going to take place. No meetings shall take place with less than 24-hour notice to the general public and each member of the public body. There were some questions yesterday. With the city, we definitely do more than that, but it's usually about 72 hours. But the 24 hours is the absolute least that you can do. And we've had issues before. We've had calls to our office where a different commission has put the wrong time on their notice, and unfortunately they did have to move their meeting because the public does have a right to be there and the right to know when it is. You also must have an agenda, must have a notice of the date, time, location, and it must have the specific matters to be discussed, considered, or decided at the meeting. So the long and short of that is that only items that are specifically listed on the agenda are to be discussed. If it's not on the agenda, it shouldn't be discussed. And if you've seen or sat in on city council meetings, it's Carl that's up there that is kind of redirecting people if they're getting just way too off topic. And in commissions like this, it's up to the chairperson or staff to get everybody back on track and back to what's on the agenda. The best practice to minimize subsequent loss, litigation and things like that is if something is not on the agenda, is to just defer it and put it on a future agenda. If action is taken on an item that's not been properly noticed to the public, that action is null and void. Calls to the public. An open call to the public is an agenda item that allows the public to address the public body on topics of concern. They can address topics that are not listed on the agenda, anything that they have a concern with. These are actually not required by state statute, but you may impose a reasonable time limit. We do three minutes, so they have a little timer up here letting them know how long that they have. As the public body, you have 4 options with what is said during call to the public. You can respond to direct criticism towards you after the close of the call to the public. So if someone, directly calls you out and says they're doing these unethical practices, you can respond. That could lead to a potential back and forth later on. So most of the time it's better to just do the last bullet point and just sit in silence. You can ask staff to review the item, have them take a look at it, and ask that the matter be placed on a future agenda so that it can be discussed. The public has the right to attend, listen, tape record, and videotape. The public does not have a right to speak unless there is a designated call to the public, and they also do not have the right to disrupt. Sanctions for violations of open meeting law. Like it says there, if a public officer knowingly violates open meeting law, the court may impose a civil penalty. How it usually works, and our office has received these, I've dealt with one before. The citizen makes a complaint to the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office sends us a complaint outlining what the facts are, what they see the facts are, and gives us a chance to respond. We either defend it and say, no, this wasn't a violation, according to us, or we say, yeah, that unfortunately was a violation of open meeting law, but here's what we're gonna do to remedy it. We're gonna give more education, do things like this so that it doesn't happen in the future. And the AG is really more about education rather than trying to punish people, so. And with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Carl.
So I get to cover conflict of interest. I always say conflict of interest is not a dirty word. It just means you have some pecuniary or proprietary interest in the subject before you. All you have to do is say, I have a conflict. You're going to fill out some paperwork that either recording secretary has or the city clerk has. Best bet is then just go take a seat back in the conference room we have back there till that item's done. Just don't participate. Don't let people know what you're thinking. That's your best options. And it covers employees, commissioners, council members. And this basically is, again, as I said, a money or some kind of proprietary interest. Could be your immediate family members as well. So if your kids, your spouse, parents, that sort of thing. If they have some kind of involvement in what the object or what the subject is before you, you just want to be careful. Again, maybe clarify what that interest is so you can make a good decision, an informed decision, and then just step aside for that. So if there is a conflict of interest, there's also these sub-definitions of that, which are called remote interests. I'm not going to go through all the remote interests. It's like 2 pages of legal script. If we get to a point where there's a conflict that you folks may or may not have, contact me, Amy, or the clerks, and we'll go through those conflicts and decide maybe that fits under the remote interests. Like I say, there's too many here. They're too detailed to really go through them at this time, but that's what we're here to do, to help you folks to make sure we all stay out of trouble. And I take those phone calls all the time. It's okay to have that. The statutes that are involved with open meeting law and conflict of interest are listed there. And again, call us if you have any questions. We got to do a real quick run on basic parliamentary procedure. The idea is to make sure we run an orderly meeting. Question is always try and speak clearly, speak in your microphone, make sure everybody can hear. And there's some set of rules that are real basic about that. And just so everybody can hear and come to a good discussion and a good conclusion without any confusion. So one of the things is going to be motions. You're going to either ask questions to talk about what the topic is, or you're going to make some motions. Motions are pretty simple. You obtain the floor, which will be the chairperson is going to get to say, Madam Chair, can I ask a question or make a motion, whatever that is. Make your motion after you've been recognized. Clear, concise. Try and say, I move that we do this. I move that we don't do that. If you've seen some motions that have floated around, even in our council meetings, we don't sometimes know where we're at. So I frequently, instead of trying to make motions to amend, we just try to backtrack and start over, make sure we're very clear what we want. Because if you're voting for something, you need to know what you're voting for, and the public needs to know what we're voting for. So when you make your motion, you're going to wait for a second, chairperson, and then anybody can do that. And who makes motions the chair can make a motion, the chair can second a motion. Has to be a second person has to second the motion. It can't be the person that made it. If there is no second, that motion fails. So once we have the motion and a second, the chairperson will say it's been moved, seconded, and then repeat that motion so you understand what it is, and everybody else there gets knows what's going on. Because like I say, we've had issues where we were all maybe just a little confused because we kind of got there tangentially. And then you put the question to the membership to vote, but you can also have discussion. You can have, because we don't follow Robert's Rules of Order, which says discussion comes after the motion. You can have discussion prior to it. You can have discussion after it. There was a question about, can you get to the point where you cut off that debate? Sure, you can do that. And cutting off debate is put the question forward, or just I want to cut off the debate. You got to have a second, you vote on it, because there's no discussion on that particular motion. That's another reason why we try to simplify our motions and our parliamentary procedure, because I always talk about I should bring my Robert's Rules of Order. It's a book like this thick. It's convoluted. It's a lot of rules, a lot of regulations, and it can be used as a weapon in governmental meetings by, I know more information than this person, so I can make these motions to kind of get what I want. So we try to boil it down to just some very few important ones, because that way you get good discussion and it's very transparent, and it allows the majority group or the minority group to be able to participate instead of being shut out. So allow motions that are in order, obtain the floor properly, clearly, concisely, watch the rules of debate, and be courteous. You got to work together. You may not agree on the item, but you still got to work with each other. Ultimately, you're trying to make sure you're doing what's right for the city, and that's what you're here for. So I think that's it for us. Any questions? Wow. Oh, we do.
Just one question.
Yes, sir.
Can you provide a copy of this presentation so we can go over it in more detail on our own?
Of course. We can make sure that Lisa will send it out to you
Yep,
guys.
if you send it to
And
Lisa.
again, any questions, just give us a call. That's what we're here for.
Also, I just wanted to clarify with the conflicts, if we see an item on the agenda that may pose a potential conflict, do we excuse ourselves at the, obviously excuse ourselves at the meeting, but then do we need to beforehand?
Yeah, what I would say is if you
disclose, or-
think you have an absolute conflict, you see it, you don't have to call me, but I would say I would let Lisa know that you say, hey, I'm going to abstain for this because I have a conflict. If you're not sure, then call us and we'll try and talk through it and see whether there is an actual conflict or not.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
we're here to help.
Carl, sorry. Would they stay here at the dais or would they go to the
You
back?
said you want to go back in the conference room.
Okay.
Yeah, I should say in the microphone. I wasn't talking to the microphone. So yeah, you want to go back to the conference room. The reason why you want to do that is because if you're up there on the commission and you have a conflict, but you could be doing like, you could roll your eyes, you can nod, whatever. It can
Body
direct
language.
that. Yeah, and I do a lot of eye rolling at things, so I need to get out of view. So, yeah, well, is that it? All right, you guys are great. Appreciate the
Thank you.
time and have a good evening or good day.
You too.
Thanks.
We're going to move to item 1A, approval of minutes, approval of regular meeting minutes of November 26, 2024. Those were sent out by Ms. Lewis. Consideration of the November 26, 2024 regular meeting minutes as written or with noted corrections. Can I get somebody to motion to approve these?
So moved.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, it's going to carry forward. We're going to move to item 2, consideration of public comments. Do we have any public comments today?
I didn't receive any public comments.
Perfect. We're going to move to item 3, old business. Keep this moving along. 3A, ASU graduate project. Commissioner Zimmerman will give an update on the current status of the ASU graduate project. Josh Noble to give an update as well. This is going to be informational. Which of you would like to start?
Well, I'm just going to introduce Josh. He's taken over operation of that.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Noble. Good to see you.
Thank you, Chairwoman Geesh. We'll see if this will allow us to play. Good. Okay, so we had our graduate students come down on Saturday this weekend, and we worked with Beale Street Theater to host an open house to gather community engagement. I just want to share a little bit of what that looked like. So we met in Beale Street Theater, which was a nice opportunity to, for people to come in and tour the space, as well as give a little bit of feedback on what they wanted to see in the community. Those are maps where people could put up notes on where they'd like to see public art in the space. We also had these boards where people left comments on, what art means to them, what Kingman means to them, And then these are our students here, and that's the whole team as well as Sylvia and I. So just kind of a quick snapshot on what that looks like. We have our survey. So at that community engagement event, we had a good 50 people from the community come out and provide their feedback. But we also have the survey out for people in the community to answer 11 questions. It's about 6 minute survey where they can talk about where they'd like to see art, sort of art they'd like to see, what arts means to them, what is important in sharing that art. And we've had over 350 surveys completed as of Saturday. So that's really good, I think, feedback. That's going to stay open till March 7th. So we're looking to continue gathering more information from the survey. We're going to give it another push later this week, early next week, to try to gather more entries. But the project so far is going really well. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on this side? I think we appreciate the update, and I've seen kind of what you guys are doing, so really appreciate the work that's going into it. Really excited to see what the students come up with.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move to item 4, new business. Seems like an odd order, but this is the order it goes in. So we're going to now move to introduction of new commissioners. We're going to introduce Ben, is it Laparne? Laparne. And Martha Lewis. So Ben, if you'd like to introduce yourself first, and then Commissioner Lewis, you can go next.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ben Laparne. I am a Kingman resident, have been here for about 4 years now. I am involved primarily as a principal in commercial real estate development and management. I've been in the Mojave County for probably 24 years now, originally from Havasu, and I've developed some properties there. And now I'm in Kingman. We still have a home there in Havasu. We go back and forth, but now I'm looking forward to doing projects here. I am the current owner, have been for 20 plus years, of the newly developed Cal Ranch Harbor Freight Shopping Center, where the old Kmart Shopping Center was. And I've picked up some other properties that I'm developing to hope to improve the community and the real estate market and retail specifically. So, any questions for me?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I am Martha Lewis. I am new to Kingman. I've been here, well, it'll be 2 years in April. I am in-house counsel for Kingman Regional Medical Center, as well as the contract manager. I am a mediator. I am a real estate agent, and I am also working on a certificate in healthcare compliance. So as you can see, I like to learn, and I am looking forward to learning more about Kingman and its citizens and how I will be best able to serve. So I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you both joining us. So you definitely both bring a different wealth of knowledge than what we each have. So looking forward to working with both of you. We're going to move to item 4B. We need a vice chair appointment. John Bennett has been appointed to the Municipal Utility Commission, and new vice chair needs to be appointed. Let's discuss and action this. Who wants to be vice chair?
I think Brian should.
Is that a
Tasha,
motion?
hi. Can I make a motion to volunteer Brian Zimmerman for co-chair?
Do you accept? He has agreed. Can I get a second for this motion? Or is there anybody else that would like to be the vice chair? Any other nominations? Okay, then I believe I need a motion and a second. Okay, thanks, Lisa.
I'll make the motion.
I second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Brian, you're the man. Thank you for agreeing to help with that. Item 4C, retail coach reports. Commissioner Zimmerman has asked for a retail coach demographics and for future growth anticipation report. Is this coming from whom?
Yeah, we have Caleb with Retail Coach on the line, and he's going to be able to present.
Perfect. Caleb, take it away.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having us on. And, for us, we've been partners with City Kingman since mid 2023. And as I'm sure many of you in this body here understand, it takes everybody to work together. So, we've appreciated the partnership here. We know that there are many of you probably sitting there in the room, and many of those that may not be here that have helped us along the way, and we've helped others through our partnership. So looking forward to giving you a quick update as to where we are. We gave an update to council, what was it, Bennett, maybe 2 months ago, and wanted to make sure that we shared a similar update with you all as to where things stand currently. So I will share a screen here with you. That way we can follow together. Can somebody confirm that you guys can see that?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Quick background on us as a company, for those who don't know us. So the Retail Coach is a retail consultant on behalf of municipalities and EDCs across the country. So 25 years ago, our founder, Kelly Kofer, found that there was a disconnect between municipalities and EDCs from developers and brands. So since then, with his development background, he's grown a team of us, and today, we service communities and have serviced communities in over 45 states. Really, our bread and butter is just being able to understand where the disconnect is. We obviously have started in Kingman with a demographic background and looking at the data, of course. So you got to understand what the customer is and the retail customer is in Kingman, and where can we look at going forward to grow. And so retail in general too is a couple things. So you got retail, you got restaurants, hospitality, entertainment. All of that is encompassed into one kind of umbrella, if you will, and so it kind of takes all of those working hand in hand to work together. And like we always like to mention is the right mix is important, right? So we obviously want to make sure that we're being accommodating to local businesses as well. Our goal is never to run out local businesses. It's to work hand in hand where maybe we might be able to include some national developers, regional developers, and along with some brands that they come with, right? So all in all, just wanted to give a quick snapshot as to what we are and who we are. And I'll just give a quick update as to kind of how we got here as well from a data standpoint. So when we look at a community, we look at a retail trade area. So whatever your primary retail trade area is, that is your primary consumer base for the community that you're in. So we do this using cell phone data. Like it or not, cell phone data is used more often than we're probably comfortable with. So it is tracking where you're coming from, your home location or your work location daily. And so we've used that data to extract it, and then we've looked at, where is those concentrations, where are they heaviest, and then we've drawn a hand-drawn polygon around that, and then put that on the map, right? So the map you see on the screen here, we've taken that area and we've extracted the demographics within that. So this is your primary customer base that's coming on a normal basis to Kingman. Just putting some basic line items on the screen here for some of that comes out of that demographic. We do have this in a more in-depth report that we've shared with brands and developers too, in case they were curious about things like how many homes are renter occupied, right? So, or how many people within this demographic drive further than 20 minutes to work. And so all of that can be looked at. But ultimately, the big numbers that we talk about all the time are the 80,000 2024 population for the primary trade area. And obviously, the incomes are usually some of the more talked about demographics. So on a secondary basis, this includes not only just your daily needs, daily consumers for Kingman, but those who probably come maybe a couple of times a month, maybe once a month to the city of Kingman. So this is that secondary trade area that encompasses a little bit larger of an area than the previous. So this is going to be 2024 for 162,000 people. And then we've got those incomes down there that really don't change very much. In the reports that we've got, we do project out, the next 5 years for growth as well. Obviously, Kingman's a growing market, so this may even be a little conservative at times, but this is what we anticipate from a growth perspective as well. Just quick side by side for anybody that's curious. Again, this is not inclusive of all the data that we have on it, but this is just kind of a quick back and forth. Again, similar, very, very similar, minor changes in the incomes, obviously doubling the amount of people within that trade area on a secondary basis. But, ultimately, Kingman's strong. Kingman's had a great trade area for a long time. Brands do extremely well here. We know that just from our experience, from what we're hearing about local operators, and then obviously what we're understanding from the market. The Chili's there, for example, does extremely well on its annual revenue. And then, for Cracker Barrel, for example, it also does extremely well. Your Walmart is in the top quarter percentile. And so, things like that obviously all point to high numbers for the city of Kingman and how well the trade area performs. Before I go any further, when sometimes people will think about, how many people do we have in Kingman? Some people will just look up, city limits and look up those numbers. From a retail perspective, those numbers change a little bit, right? So you're looking at from a different perspective and understanding, who's that trade area rather than just who's the people that live within the city limits, because that's not inclusive of the entire customer base that you would be servicing. So that's why we use the trade area, and that's why we use this information to go out and market the city. Any questions on that piece before I go into a quick update on
Can I ask
where
one?
we are from a recruitment standpoint? Go ahead.
I look at the primary trade area. Can you discuss how that is being viewed by potential retailers?
Sure. I mean, from day one, we've had a lot of interest. So there's been brands that have wanted to be in Kingman for years, honestly. And so we came into it kind of catching some of that, midway. Some of it's been new since we've started, just from outreach. Ultimately, income levels here in Kingman are a little bit lower, candidly. I mean, I'll shoot it to you straight. I mean, it's a little bit lower than the typical trade area for some brands. I think that your population is plenty from a primary basis. Obviously, looking at it from the secondary basis too, you've got a great customer base, and not to mention spending power. So, I mean, this is one thing. This is a report, but I think telling the story to a lot of these groups has helped a ton, and kind of moving the needle on a lot of the interest. So I wouldn't say it's been a negative really at all, other than some of those that can't come into a market unless you do have a certain income threshold. So there obviously are going to be those, but for the majority, most that we're targeting are comfortable with the demographic base that's in Kingman.
Thank you.
Perfect. Anybody else before I go forward?
Yeah, I have a question. Are you currently working with retailers that are strongly considering coming into this area at this time?
Yes, we are. A couple times a month, we're touching base on Kingman targets. And so it's a regular occurrence. This is not an event, right? I mean, recruitment of new brands to a community does take time. So we've built a relationship with a lot of these groups. We do have a relationship with a lot of brokers out of the valley as well. And so it's always been active. Kingman's been a fun project to work on, and looking forward to what the future is for it.
So you work primarily with the brokers in the area or out of the area that work directly with the retailers, is that correct?
It depends. Depends on the kind of the way that some of these brands work. So there are specific retailers, for example, on the retail piece at least, that do prefer us to speak directly through their broker. There are brands that we speak direct to the corporate side. There are brands that will dish us off to the franchisee. It just depends on how they typically structure their site selection strategy. It's really up to them on how they'd like us to communicate. Some of it we know just from working with them in other markets. Some of it we've learned as we've talked about Kingman. Just depends on how they'd like us to communicate.
And lastly, I know that when I personally developed my shopping center, that I dealt directly with the retailers, and I found that it was necessary to follow up regularly with these. I can't tell you how many no's I got between specifically Cal Ranch and Harbor Freight. They were no, and I was persistent, and I was able to sway them. So I imagine that you have a good follow-up program once you reach out to these people and they say, we're not considering that area at this time. I imagine that within a period of time you'll follow up on them.
Absolutely. And we did a little bit of that. I think this is a unique example given that we've had such a long partnership already with Kingman. It has allowed us to revisit some of those conversations, maybe that we haven't had since summer of last year. We've started to revisit some of those that were kind of hard nosed, like you mentioned, for one reason or another. And it does take a little bit of time, maybe revisit. Markets changed, obviously, and is changing ever so often. And so it is important to revisit even if there is a no. Because things change, strategies change. These retailers are having to adapt to a unique economic market too. So it is a lot of follow up. In addition to the ones that are kind of quote unquote low hanging fruit that are actively looking for sites.
Thank you.
Of course. And I'm going to put just real quick and to your point, I mean, we are having, phone calls. We meet with these folks at trade shows. We, email them back and forth. We've got personal numbers of a handful of them. So all in all, whatever way we can and whatever way they're comfortable communicating, we do it. And so just wanted to mention, how we're having those conversations. I'm going to give kind of some high level, buckets, if you will, of how we're recruiting. Obviously, this is important to the brands and the brokers and developers that are looking at new markets. That discretion is important to them. Confidentiality, depending on the brand, is also very important. And so today we'll mention just kind of how we're going after these groups, who we're kind of targeting from kind of a sector standpoint. And mention some of those. So obviously March was opening late last year. Was a great talking point, has been since it happened and since they were coming in. They've wanted to be here for years. And so it's been amazing to see the response for the city of Kingman to that brand. PJX knows that it's doing well. And we look forward to continuing to follow up with them for some of their other brands that may be a good fit for Kingman as well. Other groups that kind of fall in that off-price specialty retailer would be Burlington, Melrose, Five Below, Famous Footwear. These are the kinds of groups that we're looking at targeting going forward for vacancies in multiple areas of the city. So that's where we are on that sector. From a discount supermarket chain, this is a group that we've been working with for some time. It is at this point confidential just because they've asked for that. But at the same time, since day one, I think both the city, the EDC, and our team have continued to be helpful in any way that we can to them as they look for the right site in Kingman. Obviously, we know that the Walmart is kind of quote unquote busting at the seams, really, and so we know that there's demand for more groceries there in Kingman. The Safeways do well as well, and so I know that this brand is trying to get to market as soon as they can. But it's about finding the right site. This is a couple decade long real estate decision for them, and so it's got to be. It can't just be an easy one, right? It's got to be the right one, and they've got to pay the right amount of money to develop at a certain cost, and so they're continuing to push. Grocery Outlet's another one that we've been speaking to a lot. They've toyed around with expanding into the state. I know that we will definitely be reaching out and touching base with their real estate team directly whenever that happens, as we plan to. So from a warehouse grocer perspective, there's a couple in this category, right? I mean, Smart and Final has been one that we've talked with since day one. This is one that is kind of the long game. So we will continue to push for that brand. Initially it was kind of a hard no, like you mentioned, and now we're kind of slowly kind of having some sway of the waters there. But at this point for 2025, it's not the right move for them to put another store here. But I think they're starting to understand and look a little bit deeper at some of their customer base and realizing that maybe Kingman is a future need for a daily basis. So looking hard there as well. Casual restaurants are obviously a hot topic for any community, but Kingman especially, because I know that it is lacking. At least from kind of a high volume casual restaurant perspective. Groups below are kind of the ones that we're targeting. Some of the hot ones: Texas Roadhouse, Olive Garden, Applebee's, Buffalo Wild Wings. Do have communication with all these groups and others, and we'll continue to. Again, it's about finding the right site, and it's also a little bit about them not having much other than a Chili's or Cracker Barrel to go off of, and so it's taken some time for them to land here, but we will definitely continue to be helpful as they all continue to look for the right opportunity here. Travel centers have been a recent conversation that we've been having in regard to the two interchange projects. Obviously, both of those are another point where it might be a little bit of a long-term game, but we continue to speak with those groups too. From a fast casual perspective, that those that they may have a drive-through, but they do have a unique dine-in option that kind of encompasses people coming in more often than not, and having a sit-down meal that would qualify them as a fast casual. Strong demand here has been. It's been a little bit unique with territories from these kind of brands. So all these brands have franchise territories typically, and it's been a little bit of a unique wave of trying to understand who. For example, one of these groups on this list, they've had it as corporate territory. They had identified a site. We're moving forward on it, and then the franchisee came in and bought the territory, and so now we're kind of back to square one, having to restart some of that process. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's not an event; it is a process. We continue to touch base with those groups as well. From an arts and crafts perspective, we know Hobby Lobby's wanted to be here for years. Just have never had a second gen opportunity. It hasn't been a market that they've looked at for new development, just given the cost. Maybe 10 years ago we'd have a different discussion, but these days, for them, it's not been something that they can look at from a first generation perspective. That would be a brand new building for first gen. When I say second gen, that would be kind of your existing building, existing space that they could go into for a lower cost for rent. that's another one that we're continuing to stay with every couple of months, just to kind of give them an update as to where things are. QSRs or quick service restaurants, that's your fast food. Obviously a hot category anywhere, but we're trying to be as selective as we can to those and trying to recruit quality. And so we continue to look forward to those brands. In addition to touching base with the ones that are existing, right? I mean, there's always room for growth for them. There's a couple that are already in Kingman that are looking for more. So we do help those groups as well. I mentioned a wholesale discussion earlier. Sam's Club is one that we've touched base with more often. For them, they've only got so many. I think they identified 5 to 7 in the next year just to develop across the country. So with that small amount of new stores for them, they've obviously got to be pretty selective as to where they go. And then, going forward, they might include some more sites for new development, but they've got to be pretty particular in their new projects. But we have been in front of Sam's Club since the beginning. Costco's been another one we've been in front of since the beginning, and we continue to touch base with as well. Lately, there's been new specialty grocer interest. This is a little bit higher end, and so we're excited to see this group come in. And it's another confidential one, but they're actively looking at a site here in Kingman. I can't stress you enough. I think there's always room for more grocery so long as the demand's there, and it is. And so I think this group has been one that we've courted since the beginning, and we're excited to see them kind of start to get into the weeds of looking at specific spaces for them. A lot of information. Wanted to just take a pause, and if there were any questions here. Again, I may not be able to get in the weeds of specific brands, just given discretion, but if there's any questions on this, I'm happy to answer.
Commissioners, any question?
Yes, I have a question. Are your current recruitment efforts centered around Kingman's current population or projected growth in the population?
It would be that current primary and secondary trade area. We can speak to the growth, which is obviously a hot topic for any brand on the retail side. They obviously all want that growth. I mean, can't tell you enough how many communities that we've partnered with in the past that maybe are on kind of that even level of growth, right? They don't have much growth coming, and so it's harder to recruit for those communities. But Kingman's never been that issue, so we can speak to it, but it's been based primarily on those numbers within those two trade areas.
Do you tour the Kingman area and look at the vacancies in the retail market to see if there's a good fit for what's available as far as existing vacant buildings, such as the Frontier Shopping Center's got a couple of big vacancies, and everybody knows Golden Corral went out, and that's a 11,000 square foot restaurant building. You guys try to find a fit for those existing available locations?
We do. It is typically an easier conversation for retailers and restaurants these days to look at existing space or existing buildings, just given the environment that we're in, as I'm sure you're aware. So yes, combination of when we come to town, we're looking at those vacancies, looking at vacant tracts of land, and then in addition to the brokers that we're speaking with, landowners that we're speaking with on a monthly basis, and in addition to what's listed publicly. We don't just go based off of what's on the market. We do have kind of our Rolodex, if you will, of available property, whether it be lease space or vacant land that may not be listed publicly, but we do know that we can direct those groups to. So it is another constant revolving thing that we've got to stay in touch with, because those things change relatively often, and so it's definitely something that we focus on through our recruitment efforts.
Thank you.
Commissioner Zimmerman, did you have any further questions? Thank you very much, Caleb. Appreciate the update.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. And real quick, we're going to continue to do this at trade shows as well. I know that the city and the EDC have been super helpful with those that they've attended with us. Just a handful of those on the screen here. You know, it's a big focus point just because having those face-to-face meetings obviously goes quite a long way with anybody rather than just text, phone, or email. So we look forward to those trade shows and representing Kingman at those. But ultimately, again, I appreciate, and Aaron on my team, who also works on this project, both appreciate the partnership that we've got with Kingman EDC, the city, and we look forward to continuing to grow the market here.
Thank you. And just to clarify, you predominantly are working with Sylvia with the city of Kingman, correct? And so if we have brokers or commercial retail managers that are looking for some of that infill, that they could reach out to her to seek assistance with that. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We work hand in hand. I think Sylvia and I probably text each other once a week, if not more. So, we're always working together. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning, I think it takes a village, so there's a lot of things that we have to work hand in hand with. But yeah, I would say definitely direct anything you've got or ideas to Sylvia or myself, and we'd be happy to review that and see what we can do.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other questions, comments, discussion on this item?
I do have a question. Do we have data from the citizens on the type of retailers they would like to see in the area? If so, when was it collected and how was it collected?
Bennett, that's going to be a you question.
Yeah, we are actually in the process of going to be putting out a survey, which is going to gather that information. Believe that's going to go out in March. We've held off because we had the art survey and we had some other surveys, but that is something that's going out. Absolutely. So we'll have that data forthcoming.
So just to clarify, this gentleman and his team have been working on recruitment efforts before we have the data from the citizens.
Well, they've been with us for 2 years, I believe. And so there's some past surveys, but we want to do a new survey. So based upon past information and those targeted markets, they've been recruiting after those. With time, we want to get another one out. And so that is going to be taking place. So I'm sure it's going to change. People are going to have different ideas that will come from that. And then I don't know, Caleb, if you have any comments based upon those target markets that fit based upon your knowledge and past
a little bit
activity.
A little bit, yeah. To your point, Commissioner, it is definitely kind of a marriage between the two interests, right? We want to make sure that we're aligning who we're recruiting with those that the residents want, right? We also want to make sure that we're targeting groups and developers that align with that primary trade area and the market that you're in. And so candidly, I'm not going to be able to go recruit a Seasons 52, which is a Darden brand that's higher end, just because it's not worth us touching base with a higher end restaurant like that necessarily, just because we know in our experience the demographic that they target, and that it would be a non-starter with some brands to look at the Kingman market. But granted, there's like I mentioned, there's always a changing market here, so we're open to ideas. But we created the initial list and continue to evolve that list of who we're going after based on those that match the community and the trade area of Kingman. But we definitely look forward to the survey, and I know that we're going to get a lot of insight out of that.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to item 4D. Thanks, Caleb. That's going to be the WAVE JTED partnership. Chair Gish would like to know more about the WAVE JTED partnership. WAVE Superintendent Amy West will speak on this topic. Hi, Amy.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I've never been here before, so thank you for having me. First of all, my name's Amy West. I've been the superintendent with WAVE for 10 years, I've been in education for 30. Education is great with acronyms, so WAVE stands for Western Arizona Vocational Education. We are a career preparation district. We serve students primarily in grades 10 through 13. We do a little middle school work and career exploration. But we operate in the cities of Kingman, Havasu, Bullhead, and Parker, which allows us to kind of consolidate some of our services and kind of do more with less, I guess. The ways that we operate is that we partner with several of the high schools in those areas. We can also do our own programs, so we have partnerships with Kingman Fire, Bullhead Fire for fire academies, partnership with Kingman Regional for a nursing assistant, and we have our own culinary campus in Lake Havasu. The other way that we do things is we can pay the tuition and fees for students to attend the community colleges. So we pay tuition and fees to Mojave Community College and Arizona Western College, and that is a wide variety of program. Everything from automotive, your industrial programs, welding, HVAC, electrical, medical programs, nursing, medical assistant, business, computers, there's just a bunch of them that we offer. So that's kind of how we operate and who we are. And I know you want an update about the building that we are looking, so kind of how we got here. WAVE has been saving money for a long time. We started in 2009 and we knew that we wanted to build at some point. We have people working at home. We had a couple cubicles at the county building, and we knew at some point we wanted to build a building and expand what we were able to do. So with that being said, we've been saving money, and now is the time. About a year and a half ago, we had some stakeholder meetings where we put together a district plan. That plan basically said Kingman is probably the first stop because you already have a campus in Havasu, you've got a footprint there. So Kingman was kind of our first stop. We had 3 employees here. There's a lot of things happening in Kingman with the new interchanges and development and things like that. And so this is kind of where we wanted to start. And then the plan also kind of identified the next stop would probably be Colorado River, someplace in the Bullhead area, along with infusing some funding and maybe programming into Parker and Arizona Western. We would probably never build in Parker simply because of the size, and they have a really nice new college campus there, and the high school has been doing some remodeling with WAVE funds and things like that. So that's kind of how we got here. We have presented to the city of Kingman twice on the concept of a building project, a joint building project. So that being said, Bennett, Mr. Brantley and I sit in a lot of meetings together. We started with this district-wide plan. We had a lot of community stakeholders come in. And from that, we evolved to maybe it shouldn't just be a WAVE building, a school building. Maybe it should be more than that. And so in those conversations, we started meeting with the City of Kingman staff, economic development staff, city staff, talking about what would it look like to bring some things to Kingman that maybe we don't have. What would it look like to partner with economic development, education, small business development center, and put those things under one roof and consolidate some of those central services that maybe you don't want to duplicate. So as those conversations evolved, one of the other things we did is we do not have a co-work space here in Kingman. So we visited Nomadic in Lake Havasu to see their facility. And so as the conversations have come about, we are looking at a building that would include a co-work space that is rentable space for new businesses to come in, get started, whether that's a big business or a small business. We would have economic development offices for their staff. Mojave Community College has indicated the Small Business Development Center, they would like to maybe put that there so that those entities can work together. And then along with that, WAVE would have office space for our staff so that we're not working at home or in cubicles, and have some classroom space and some lab space. And then that shared space would be things like conference rooms, huddle rooms, training rooms, podcast rooms, phone booths, things like that that can be used by all 3 of those entities. So that's kind of where we are. We have presented to City of Kingman Council twice. They have identified a preferred site as being at Fairgrounds and Andy Devine Route 66. We have, with some contingency funding that we had with the person that helped us with our district-wide plan, we have kind of done some bubble diagrams saying this is what we'd like. Obviously, we haven't gotten to the point where we've done architectural things and the actual costing, so that's part of our next steps. As far as the other next steps that we need to do, we need to get money figured out. WAVE has committed about $5 million to the project. We've had conversations of what does that look like then for the city of Kingman. We've talked about different financing options, different ways to do that. Does WAVE finance something? Does the city finance something? Does WAVE look more at their funding that they have? And, just lots of different scenarios have been discussed. Then we got legal involved. Oh, Carl left. We got WAVE Legal and City Legal involved, and they, of course, have a whole different set of questions that they want answered and want us to look at. So those are kind of our next steps. The City Council has said, please come back with some recommendations on what funding looks like. Please come back with kind of a legal agreement on what that looks like, how it would operate. Once you get the building built, you have to operate it, and you have multiple entities there that you have to look at. So that's kind of that process. And then WAVE needs to look at what programs we would put there, right? And that's where some of the things that you've heard today and what you guys deal with all the time, we're looking at what do we put there that maybe the college doesn't offer? What can we put there that feeds into a college program? What can we put there as a continuation of a high school program? Or do we offer something completely new that nobody else has right now? And what does that do to support our local workforce development, which is ultimately our goal to, as he talks about those economic numbers and those salary numbers, we want to increase our educational attainment. We want to increase our economic attainment of the folks that live here in the city of Kingman. So, did I miss anything? Is there anything you have questions about?
I'll start towards this side. I tend to go left to right around. Any questions down here?
I just want to comment that I'm familiar a little bit with your culinary program because my granddaughter is involved with that at the
cool.
Lake Havasu City High School through the high school. So she loves the program, and her friends that we know love it too. So that's a great program for the kids. So.
It is. And they do a lot of community service down in the city of Lake Havasu, and so they're very visible, and we would love to have that up here in Kingman as well, something that kind of mirrors that.
I just want to add the comment, as on the business side, we've worked a lot with done career days and are working with some of the internships upcoming. And so for job readiness and keeping the younger generation in Kingman, I think this is a great partnership. Not everybody is going to look to go to university, and when you look at our demographics, you can see that that's fairly true. But helping people find ways to advance their opportunities within the skill set that they want to be in is amazing.
Thank you. We're spending a lot of time right now kind of reimagining what high school looks like. We were forced into that during that period we had a few years ago, and we had to look at different things. And so our schools are doing a great job of looking outside of what they normally did of a student walking down the hallway and going into a classroom, and that's what you did for your 6-7 hours a day. And so we're focusing on pathways, that work-based learning. How do we take a student and say, hey, you can get everything here? We also want them to have outside lenses, right? We have to have that outside influence so that they're learning about the world around us. So as we look at those pathways, it's kind of interesting. The college is doing some great things. They're looking at bringing in some bachelor's programs. The high schools are looking at reimagining high school. And we're kind of right there in the middle that we work with both of those. So hopefully we can, as a community, come together and really put some awesome things in place for our high school students to stay here and learn here and grow here and continue to be a productive member of society.
So my question to you would be, since we do answer to city council, is there anything we can do for you at this point, or anything that we can assist you with?
I think we're in a pretty good space. I've felt really fortunate because it's all been pretty positive, the feedback that we've gotten. Really now it's about moving things forward. Like, we are ready. I will go buy a shovel and a hard hat tomorrow if we can get this thing going and move forward. So, and I know that all takes time of getting plans and things like that, but I think the support and I think the feedback is important. I live in the education world. And so I don't necessarily live in your world where you're seeing some of those things that you would like the community to have. So I think feedback is really important. I can't say yes to everything, obviously, but knowing what other people and other industries and other workforce partners are looking at and would like to see in the community is helpful. And when we develop programs, and I think I can speak on behalf of MCC and economic development, I think we all feel that way. of how do we get to where we build what's really needed. So,
Other questions or comments for Ms. West? Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate your
guys.
time, Amy.
yep.
Okay, we are going to move to item E. Mr. Noble, this is going to be you. Route 66, the Main Street America film. Josh Noble to update commission on the film screening agreement for July 2026.
Okay, once again, I am going to share screen, and then I will go into the topic. Actually ran into an article in the Miner from 1995 about John Padgett when he was working on his first film project. So this is a documentary that will be aired on PBS, and they are also looking at having screenings on Route 66 in communities during the centennial. So we had proposed having a screening here in Kingman at Beale Street Theater, July 2026. With that, there is a $10,000 screening fee, $5,000 of which we would put in this year. The other $5,000 we would put in 2026. The ticket sales would be a split between the producer and then us locally, which we would negotiate with Beale Street Theater what that looks like. Any concessions or other fees can be kept on the theater side. So there's a little bit of revenue we'd be bringing back in, but there's a lot of awareness and notoriety for Kingman that we could get out of participating in this documentary. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are you looking for feedback on whether we're doing this or funding, or what information are you looking at from us?
We're looking to see if the commission would be in support of us moving forward with the project. It is an answer that we need to get back with them in March, so next month, so that they can start planning that, what that looks like. There is also a proposal before the Arizona Office of Tourism for the state to be a state sponsor. And we've already spoken with the producer. If Kingman moves forward and the state also moves forward, we can fold in as part of that, which gives us a little bit further reach.
And I assume that would come out of tourism funding, most likely.
Correct.
Questions, comments?
I'd certainly be for something like that. I think it'd be great for our community.
It does seem like a very good low cost for this kind of marketing. Really a lot of bang for the buck.
I think we can use any positive out there that we can get. It's very well done, by the way.
I agree. I think making sure that the timeline lines up with, so we're not taking away from other events that are happening in the community at that time. But I definitely think that could be a very positive thing for us.
Absolutely, and we don't know, when in July. That'll be worked out later on. July is not a heavy event season for us. 4th of July,
I know
first
big
Friday,
plans for 4th of July because that's the 250th.
250th, and it could be something that could be folded into that if that takes place. And if not, honestly, we'll probably want to build an event around the screening, car show, and some other things if there wasn't already an
That could
event taking
definitely be
place.
very cool, yeah.
And Josh, in addition to the screening, there's going to be footage and film happening in Kingman?
Actually, the producer will be here during the fun run this year, gathering some footage. So yes, not only footage of Kingman, but also wanting to have some of the voices of Kingman, the residents who have been here, over the time of Main Street in America, to include in the show.
Very cool. I think hopefully you received your direction. Do we need a vote on this or?
Sure, let's go through the
All right.
process if you would. I appreciate it.
No problem. So I'm hearing that in general, we're in support of this. Does somebody want to make a motion or do you want me to present a motion for you? Okay. Make me do the work here. So I guess I motion that we move forward with a film screening agreement with the Main Street of America Film Project. Can I get a second?
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Tasha, I didn't mean to ignore you there. Did you have a comment? Or were you just voting along?
I was just voting along.
Perfect.
Thank you.
We are going to move to item F, guest speaker. We're going to have Christina Mickelson, the Executive Director for the Kingman Center of the Arts, to give a presentation regarding the funding of an LED sign at Beale Street Theater. And there is a graphic, but we might have to move it more centrally. I don't know. Can you guys see it over there?
We'll bring it up in a minute.
We got Bennett. Bennett's got this.
All right, thank you for having us here today. My name is Christina Mickelson, and I am the Executive Director for Kingman Center for the Arts. As many of you know, we've been working to renovate the historic State Theater into a performing arts venue for the city. We are on schedule to finish construction on the building in June of this year, and we will be raising additional funds to pay for all of the theatrical equipment that needs to go in there. I brought a few pictures of the progress for those of you who haven't been down there lately. This is a view of from the top of the stairs looking down into the lobby. We've tried to keep some original elements of the glass block there you can see. This is backstage. This is the green room where the performers will hang out. This is one of the restrooms that's coming close to completion. And then the theater itself, this is a view of some of the work that's being done there. Our current fundraising activity is a Adopt a Seat fundraiser. This allows community members to get their name on a seat for 10 years in the theater. And those are on sale now. We plan to start using the building to host local entertainers starting on the first Friday in July of this year. And then we'll add more outside entertainers as we get the necessary equipment installed in the theater. In 2024, the Beale Street Community Theater shows engaged around 200 people in cast and crew and sold over 6,000 tickets. Our audience numbers increase every year, and we get engagement from both Bullhead City and Lake Havasu. In addition to our local community theater shows, we are on the radar of many booking agents from around the country who email us about professional entertainers who are coming through the area. In 2024, we booked a few comedians and hosted them at the Beale celebrations. Our engagement for them was good, and we'll be booking more for this fall that we'll be hosting at the theater. Other entertainers that have reached out to us include a lot of musicians. We have not booked any of these because there is not a good venue in Kingman to host live music, but there will be soon, and we're excited for that. A third opportunity, again, is for film screenings that Josh talked about. We've been approached by several booking agents about independent film screenings and film festivals. Again, there's not a good venue in the city to show these, but there will be soon. We plan to have a projection system to accommodate these requests, and we'll start offering opportunities for local filmmakers to collaborate and create local independent films. Kingman is in a perfect spot to grab professional entertainment as we are on the major booking route that runs from Las Vegas to Phoenix. We've already made connections with other local theaters in Prescott, Flagstaff, and down in the Valley. These connections are important as booking agents love to book a group of theaters instead of just one at a time. If you look at programming that's offered at the Elks Theater in Prescott, the Orpheum and Coconino Arts Center in Flagstaff, those are similar to what we'll be able to offer because we will share some of those bookings with them. One of our biggest challenges has been marketing due to the fact that the schools we are using are very difficult to schedule. We are often left with confirmation of dates happening as little as 2 months before our performance dates. This is not enough lead time to market our shows outside of the area. So having our own venue means we can schedule up to a year in advance, which will alleviate this problem and open us to more targeted marketing activities that support tourism. Additionally, when a performer is booked to perform with us, we get put on their tour route, which gives us a wider marketing reach through their website and social media, drawing in their fans that live in the region. We saw this with some of the comedians we booked. We are confident that live theater entertainment will entice more visitors to the city and encourage those who are already coming to stay a little longer. And you have a handout that illustrates the economic impact of historic theaters in a community if you would like to reference that. So I would like to invite Toby up. He has the graphic there, which we've got on the screen as well. So we are here to request funds to put up a digital billboard on the front of our building. A traditional marquee would cost upwards of $250,000, but with the help of discount signs locally, we are able to get a similar look and function for around $70,000. The digital sign would be a great asset to the economic development of the historic downtown district, as it will increase our marketing footprint and entice visitors to Kingman to stay a little longer and come and see a show. And we'll go ahead and open it up if you have questions for us, or if there's anything you'd like to add.
Yes, I'd just like to add that the proposed sign will have a digital.
Toby, can you-
Mr. Orr, would you mind just using the microphone so those that are online can also hear you?
Yes, I just wanted to add that our proposed sign would actually have a keyboard to where you could you could put messages on the sign, which would be great for, yeah, any kind of marketing you want, really. So I think that's one of the, yeah, so.
Excellent. Questions, comments?
Yes, I have a question. Who would be responsible for the maintenance of the sign?
That would be us, I believe.
I'm sorry, when you say yes, can you be more specific?
So Kingman Center for the Arts.
Thank you.
And how much funding are you looking at from the city or from others?
For this sign particularly, we have not earmarked any other funders for it. We're here to ask you and see what you would be able to fund towards this sign.
So you're hoping to take this before the city with approval from?
Yes, we think this is an appropriate request from the tourism bed tax money because, you talk heads in beds being kind of their motto for expenditures of the bed tax money. This, in our opinion, it would create opportunities for people who want to stay in Kingman. So, and the cost of the sign is going to be $70,000. And once again, we have raised over $2 million for this theater. We still have quite a bit of money to go because the June opening will be what we call a soft opening because we still will not have some of the theatrical lighting and sound systems. So we're still not finished raising money. That's why I do think it is an appropriate request of the city to ask for $70,000 for an informational sign.
To be clear, we don't control any money.
Understood,
But I'm going to defer over to Mr. Noble because that tax is going to fall under, or Bennett.
So.
Do you want to follow up on this? Because I would have to go
Yeah,
through budgeting.
I think as the commission, you can look at a concept and, support it or not support it. And then we can take that and we can look at budgets, look at funding mechanisms and bring things back based upon that. I do think that, your support, whether you support it or not, will eventually need to go to a council, obviously, and take your comments and your positions to them based upon yes or no.
Okay.
So I think you could walk out of this with a discussion and then possible action being, support in having us further investigate where this type of funding, the amount, whether we have it budgeted this year, next year.
Okay.
I would just,
And then to
one of
move
the
that to a
questions
city
is like
council.
timeframe
Yep.
on wanting to get this thing funded again by
What would you say
the sign, sorry, this.
time frame on getting this installed?
Well, really, it'd just be a matter of a few weeks, once the funding would be in place.
So you are trying to get into this budget cycle, to be clear?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And have you guys considered, I know the facade improvement program, Kingman does have some funding through that already.
Yes, we've been using that
Okay.
to do, 3 years?
I know you guys
worth?
have used the murals program, but I just want
Yeah,
to make
we
sure.
have used that one as well. And the city has been very helpful and supportive of this project, which we are very grateful for. But we know, as Toby said, we've raised over $2 million. We still have probably another close to $1 million left that will be fundraising. And we have a lot of support, a lot of community member support, but Kingman does not have the same fundraising capacities as some of the other areas in the state do. And so we feel like the little engine that could running up the mountain. But as we're coming now to seeing the building construction finished and being able to start using it in a limited capacity, we are really excited to move this to the finish line.
As some of the discussion on this, the business of arts and culture, an article from November last year, Business Insider of Phoenix, talked about the fact that arts and culture contributes about 3% of the state's GDP, which runs to about $14 billion. Now, obviously, we're not quite in that realm, but it's clear that growing arts and culture makes a big difference in the economy, as well as the quality of life. So I want to remind people that you're kind of investing in the future. The real question is the signage an important factor in that or not? And that's something that I think needs to be discussed.
So let's discuss that. How, I'll take some discussion or a motion. What do we feel?
Well, first of all, I think the design of the sign is awesome. It's retro. The ability to message off that sign, I think, is important for the community to know the coming events. Right off the top of my head, and again, I'm not knowing where the funding can come from, because I'm not privy to that, from the city. The thing that comes to my mind is if maybe proposed to the city to fund half the sign and maybe through private fundraising, fund the rest of the sign. That's what comes to my mind.
I agree. I agree with that. Whereas I do support the idea of the sign, I think that $70,000 is a lot of city funds, as you mentioned, a smaller city like this, to dedicate to any sign. And I would like to see other funding sources used, and then maybe, the city could fund half of it, a portion of it, after there's some evidence of other efforts to collect funds. And one effort that I can think of off the top of my head is, and I don't know if this is the way your business model works or what have you, maybe you mentioned that there would be businesses who could advertise on either side of the sign. Is there a effort for pre-sale of those advertising spots that may be able to raise some funds, I guess, in anticipation of the sign?
I do want to respond to this because just to be clear, when we're talking about potentially using tourism funds, so that is a separate tax that is collected just for tourism activities. It's collected from all tourism businesses, so that's would be your hotel tax. So there is an extra percentage that is put just towards that. So it wouldn't be coming out of city general funds. I wouldn't imagine that would be how we'd approach that. It would be through tourism, would be my guess. And I'm getting the head
I
shake,
see.
so.
Thank you for that
Bennett,
clarification.
can you discuss just how much an annual tourism tax provides for this kind of thing?
Oh, I'm sorry.
About how much annually do we get in that tourism tax, that 2%?
Around 800,000. So to answer your question as to would this come from tourism, we have in the past worked with the museum, providing funds for the digital sign that they have, and that helps announce events as people are coming into downtown. The Olympic pool, Centennial pool, when they'd have their dolphin swim meets there, we've also put funding in for their scoreboard there. So this sort of project has been funded partially with tourism dollars before.
So it fits the normal scope of that.
I have a comment. I'm fully in support of it, but I also think we need to continue to do things like this to develop the aesthetic of the community, because if you think about where you go for entertainment, you're drawn to those kind of things. You're looking for that, and it makes you want to know more. And I think as we're trying to develop this community, these kind of things should be a part of it. So I fully support that.
Thank you.
I'm just going to comment as one that helps provide some of those tourism taxes. I don't have an issue with this type of activity for tourism. I think it's a good fit. It's something, it's going to provide activities for both local residents and tourists to view and to participate in. And it's going to continue to work on that downtown Beale Street renovation that's turned out really nice, and to continue to put high-quality images and products there. That would be good.
Thank you.
I would, to answer your question, I think the motion would be, whether you support the concept, and then we would then take it back and look at the budgets, look at funding mechanisms, and not really get in the weeds of 50%, but then take that discussion to council. I think your guys is whether it fits with where you see, the goals of tourism, is what we're looking for.
Okay.
And projects like
And I would
these.
say it does fit our current tourism strategies for marketing. Josh, you've got the roadmap here. Oh, yes. Thank
I have another comment. So, Bennett, with that, does the city, again, I'm not familiar with how the funding works. When the city looks at a project like this, are they comfortable with funding the whole project, or do they look at some participation? It makes it maybe more appealing for them to participate.
They may. We haven't talked with the city about this project yet. So this
Generally speaking.
Yeah, so it varies.
Okay.
I haven't had a discussion with any council member in regards to this project. I think that your guys is looking at it first, seeing if there's any, type questions that you might have and whether or not it fits with our goals. And then the funding, we have to look at the budgets. Whether or not we even have the money in the budget this year based upon what we've spent. And if that's the case, it may be that the funding may have to come from other areas, but that would be up to council to decide.
Okay. With that, I just want to say I'm 100% for it. I think you guys did a great design on it, and I think it would be a great addition to the downtown, so.
Thank you so much.
Okay, to move this forward then, can I get a motion to, in support of assisting in the funding for the LED sign at Beale Street Theater in conjunction with the Kingman Center for the Arts?
I move that we recommend.
I would just say funding to be determined.
Yes,
amount,
yeah. I said assist.
I move that we recommend staff explore the possibility of how this fits the strategy and the budgeting to be able to take it to the council at some point.
Is that your motion?
That's the motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries? No,
Okay.
we heard everybody's.
I have
voice.
another question before you guys sit down.
Yes.
So you had mentioned that you have a current fundraiser for this Adopt-A-Seat for the, you didn't say what that cost would be for that seat.
$1,000 for the seat, and the
$1,000.
name is good for 10 years.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move to section 5A. We have a guest speaker. We're just trying to kind of move everybody through. So if you're okay with it, Tammy, we're going to move you up. This is going to be the Mojave County Economic Development Director, Tammy Ursenbach, to speak about the foreign trade zone.
And here's my disc. Can I take this disc out? Oh, is that yours?
You okay? You got it.
Maybe not. Okay, let's go to. And we'll keep it. Okay, whoops, how do we get it up now? Is it shared? Okay, there we go. Okay, let's get it to, okay, there we go. Maybe? Okay, there we go. All right. I've been asked to kind of share what a foreign trade zone is and what we're doing. So I thought, first of all, I want to just talk about what a foreign trade zone is and what the purpose is. A foreign trade zone are a secure area under the U.S. Customs and Borders Protection, and I'm going to say CBP, just so I'm not saying that whole thing all along. It's under their supervision that are generally consistent outside the CBP territory upon activation. So locating in an area in or near a CBP port of entry are the United States versions of what is known as internationally as the free trade zones. Now that means that when you bring something into that area, it's as if it hasn't come into the United States yet. It sits in an area that's locked or itemized. It may be out in port, but it's just sitting there. It's not doing anything yet. And the purpose is so that we can then save, work on that with that merchandise that's being brought in without going through all of the legal processes through the United States. So foreign and domestic merchandise may be moved into the zones for operations not otherwise prohibited by law, including storage, assembly, manufacturing, and processing. And since we've been working on this project, we've found out that data centers also qualify if they're doing work for business internationally. So it would be the Amazons or that type of thing. If they're bringing products in and out, that would also qualify in these zones. All zone activity is subject to the public interest review. So just like you have to go by any legal processes and Robert's rules of all of that has to be followed with this as well. Foreign trades are subject to all laws and regulations, not just of the United States, but of our states and communities. So for Arizona, ours are a little different in the fact that we cannot bring product in, we cannot let businesses from outside of the state of Arizona come in and utilize our zones. So that means Needles, Laughlin, Hilldale, Mesquite, all of those, even though they're close, they cannot come in and use our zones, which has been a positive because there's places like in St. George, Utah that are looking, they need that product. They're going to have to build in Arizona to be able to utilize that zone for us. For us, that we are determining to use all of the whole county border. So it doesn't matter where you're at in Mojave County. If you have a business and you want to utilize the zone, you can do that. The difference is for us, we're going to have 4 zones, what they call magnet zones, and the Kingman Industrial Park will be the largest one, including the land that they're hoping to be released in the near future. So all of that will be in our zone for Kingman. That anything that comes and goes can automatically bypass a lot of the long processes and save a lot of money to come into the zone. The other zones that we have are out at Griffith. We've got 2 companies already, and I'm working on 2 more to look to come into the Griffith area that are going to use the zone. I've got the White Hills area, and I've got 1 company, possibly 2 already looking to come into that zone, and then Colorado City. It's got 134 acres, so it's a little bit smaller, but they don't have the manufacturing there. And that's the biggest thing. Let me keep going to the reason we need to have these zones is, number one, it does encourage retention of companies that are already here. And it gives them the resources and the tools that they need to open up for international trade. Right now, you hear President Trump, you hear a lot of people talking about the 25% tariffs or more in some areas, and they are more for our businesses coming in and out. If you're going to other countries, some of it is a lot more than the 25%. So by bringing in something into the zone people don't pay tariffs on that until it's moved. So if you're bringing it in and you're storing it and you don't send it out for 6 months, you don't pay your tariffs on that until it goes out nationally for the first 6 months. If you are going to bring in a part, say a fan, and put it in something, whatever that's going to look at, and create it something else, and then ship it out internationally, you don't pay tariffs either way. So it's sitting on the shelf, and it's not costing money, which is really important. So it's really encouraging the businesses to come and do that. The other thing that I'm excited about is if you bring in something big, like a big sheet of metal, and you're cutting it into pieces, you don't pay the tariffs on that waste. So that saves a company a lot of money by, say, you get this sheet of metal and you're cutting out little rings or whatever. All of that waste you can use, you can recycle it, you can do whatever you want to with it at that point, but you're not having to pay the tariffs on that. And that saves company millions of dollars by going through some of these processes. So I've had people really upset saying, we don't want any international trade, we don't want that here, we want everything manufactured right here in the United States. But that is not really realistic in the fact that there's a lot of things that we need right here that are not manufactured and cannot be manufactured in the United States. Or in our county, for me, when I bring in businesses, I am very picky about certain products that I don't want here for our county because it might not be environmentally something that we want. The contamination might be bad, and I use that for a purpose because I bet in the last 2 or 3 years, I've had several companies contact me and say, we want to manufacture solar panels here. And I turn them away and tell them we're not interested. They need to go somewhere else. The contamination in our landfills and what it could do to our people is not worth bringing them here. And so some of those things, we want to have them come in from out of the country. We manufacture it, we use it, and then we ship it back. So we're getting all that extra money. We're getting all of that extra revenue coming in. We're having more employees. We're having more property taxes, more sales taxes. Everything is coming. But we're helping our local businesses, or the new businesses coming in are helping to grow those tax bases as well, and those new employees. I have one company I'm working with right now that is going to be doing international trade, and they're going to bring in the products, some different formulas of things that they're going to bring in, put it into something else, and ship it out, and bottle it, can it, do whatever they're going to do, and ship it out. It's a 1 million square foot building. They're going to start with 300 employees. Their average wages start at $80,000 and go up to $120,000. And within the first few years, it'll be 420 employees. That's a benefit to our county. The reason they're coming is because of the foreign trade zone, which I'm grateful for because they wouldn't be coming otherwise. So the foreign trade zone itself costs money to be part of, but not that much in reality. So because we're starting with these 4 magnet sites, if a company comes in, I'm trying to look and see, sorry. I think it's $8,000, but a new magnet site application is $8,000. So that sounds like a lot of money when I first heard that, and I thought, oh my gosh, but that pays for all of the staff that's going to have to help take care of this year over year. The annual fee from there on is $12,000, but it's taken us in the county a long time. We've been working on this for a year and a half, about a year and a half. It's taken time to pull the taxing entities together, to pull the application together, and to make sure that we have businesses already lined up to be part of the application. And that's where we're working right now. Is if we already have businesses that put in their application with us, when the county puts in the application, it's almost a guarantee. Currently, there's only 197 active foreign trade zones within nationally, and the majority of them are on coastlines where ports are. And so there's very few inland ports, although we have some here in Arizona already. We've got 2 in the Phoenix area, 1 in Yuma and 1 in Tucson, and so this will be the next one. To be able to become a It's taken years. When I moved here, Kingman could never get a foreign trade zone. And I talked to Bennett before, and he said, we've tried, we can't do it. But when I found out you have to be 60 miles or 90 minutes from the closest foreign trade zone, we started putting our little heads together, and I talked to a couple of consultants, and if we use the whole county boundaries, not just Kingman, then we qualify. The next hurdle that we had to come through was the fact that our closest foreign trade zone is in Nevada, and it's at the airport is where the headquarters of that. And so we had to make sure that we were within that logistics area. We've been working with the customs out of Long Beach, and that's the next step, is making sure that they will accept us, and they've already said, put the application in, and we will most likely, they can't guarantee, but that we will most likely be willing to support you, because those customs people have to come in once a year. They're supposed to come into the businesses and check the businesses, check their records, make sure everything is secure and they're following protocol. And then the county goes in and educates and makes sure that everything's there long before they get there, as well as customs in the area. They can just walk in at any time. So everything has to be documented, what's coming, what's going, what they're doing to help to bring in the business, to make sure that that saving those tariffs and not paying those tariffs or waiting until they pay the tariffs is being used properly. I've talked to other businesses in other areas, and they've said that it saves them not just millions a year, but some of the businesses save billions a year in tariffs costs alone. So this is a huge benefit to our community and will help the whole county to grow. But especially with the two sites between Griffith and Kingman, it's really going to help the Kingman area grow the most. So with that, any questions?
Questions are available? I'm sorry? Go ahead. Can you discuss any advantage or disadvantage of the I-40 trade port, the corridor, and the rail connections we have?
How that's going to help the foreign trade zone? Or
Yeah.
is that what you're...
If at all.
I'm going to say the fact that we have the rail here. I don't know how the two go together exactly, but the fact that we already have rail, the fact that we've got the airport right here in Kingman, all of those are going to be used. So it's going to be, obviously we're going to have truck, rail, and air to get the things in and out. We don't have water, and that's okay. But everything's going to come, like I said, either Long Beach, or it's going to fly into LAX, or it's going to fly into Phoenix. We're going to have it fly in and then come to our area. So will the corridor help? I don't know, other than put it on the map more to encourage people to come. I think the city and I need to sit down and figure out what that looks like. We have wanted to have some discussions, and we haven't really had that time to pull that together yet.
Okay.
I would just also comment that this is just another tool in the toolbox.
It is.
Is what it is. So it's a combination of the I-40 trade port, the foreign trade zone. It's putting us on the map. So all those things are positive, and I think they will work together.
Well, and with the city already has the transloading system out at the airport. You pull it all together, it becomes an actual inland port with everything what the city's doing, and then this adds to that inland port and makes it even stronger. Any other questions?
Seeing
Okay.
none, thank you very much.
Thank you. Get out of here.
Perfect. Okay, we are circling back to item G, the Route 66 Centennial logo and graphics. So I will say we are approaching 2 hours, so if we can move things along, or if there's an item we can table, then let's try and,
I think we
Try
can
and
move
do that.
along pretty quick.
okay, cool. I didn't know how long these next items were.
I think we can move along pretty quickly, Chairwoman Geesh. So what you have before you aren't finalized logos, it's concepts that Adam has put together. Adam is with our office. He has put these together. He does a lot of our social media, online presence materials. So at this point, I am going to step back and let him take over.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So the logo you see before you, as well as the one I'm about to bring up on the screen here, oh yeah, where's that folder? Desktop. Okay. Okay. All right, so as you know, or might not know, oh, share. Yeah, got it. Thanks. Okay, so we will be celebrating in 2026 the 100th anniversary of Route 66. And as part of that, we're trying to brand that celebration within Kingman. So there's going to be several logos that will exist for this centennial, including a state logo, as well as most likely a national logo. And so what this is this is going to be Kingman's logo. So it's going to be something that's really specific and speaks to what Kingman's role is in the centennial of Route 66. So I've come up with a few concepts here. To be more specific, these concepts utilize a classic Chevy truck in here that is actually historically significant to the city. I actually spoke with Mike, the current owner of the truck, and he was sharing some of that history with me. And so that's one of the reasons it's kind of featured in the logo. So I've tried to incorporate some of the more prominent elements of Kingman. So we have the heart, we have the neon from the arch, as well as the historic truck, basically overlaid in front of the historic Route 66 shield. So this is by no means a final, but what this is this is just a concept and kind of to get a scope of direction where I'm taking this and to get your input as far as what everyone thinks and what would be the next steps moving forward. Maybe that's try a different route or maybe incorporate something else that might be important to Kingman as far as this centennial celebration goes. So yeah, that's basically where we're at with the logo design. And so does the commission have any feedback or questions that they would like to ask me concerning this?
I have feedback.
Okay, go ahead.
So personally, this is my opinion, I'd like to see it stick closer to that Explore Kingman logo to keep the more consistent branding. I like the element of the truck. I think that could be added in there. The Kingman, Arizona is in the lower section. I think you could incorporate the heart in it. But I think just to keep our branding consistent, even though it's a celebratory, it's going to be only used for the year, to make it more identifiable with Kingman, I would keep it more similar to our Explore Kingman.
Okay, so, sorry. If I'm understanding you, basically, you feel the value in our current branding in the logo behind you, yes?
Yeah.
And so, staying in that theme, you feel that the logo should be closer to that look.
I think that this is what we associate a lot with Kingman on a lot of our stuff. And so if you wanted to, I'll say, zhuzh it up and add a car on there and stuff, I think that's my opinion.
Okay.
But we have a bunch of other people here that can also give their opinions too.
I agree 100% with Brittany.
I'm just going to throw a quick one. Both of these seem a little too busy.
Okay. Thank you.
Tasha, Commissioner O'Neill, you had a comment as well?
I just said I agreed 100% with what you mentioned. That's like almost exactly what I was thinking.
Okay. Anyone else?
Comments down here? So I like what you did. I like the elements that you put in there. I think that it would be cool to see them added to closer to our city logo.
Okay. So would you like to put a motion forward to basically explore an option that's closer to our current branding?
Do we need a motion for this? Because this is just staff direction.
Yeah, I think that, Josh, we could probably just take it back, your feedback, and depending on our timeline, potentially bring something back, but we'll take your feedback into account. Was there anybody else had any additional
Yeah,
feedback?
I want to just comment that I do agree. I think that that is consistent, and I think consistency is important. I think if you were to add the element of the truck and obviously the 100-year anniversary emblem and maybe the heart as well into that, I think that consistency is important, and that, you know, that's our trademark kind of, you know, essentially, and sticking with that, I think is a consistent message.
Okay, thank you so much for your time and your feedback.
I'll gladly use these for t-shirts though, if you want to get together. Perfect. Let's go ahead and move forward to, I think, the next, I've lost my paperwork. Item H, possible exemption for, to the City of Kingman's design standards that prohibits pole signs. Is this something we can even do?
So what we've talked about is working with the planning and zoning department to work on amending our current city codes to allow for pole signs. Let me just go
So
through.
you're looking for support?
We're looking for support from the commission, correct?
Yes.
Okay, let me go ahead and read the thing while you're pulling that up. So it said, the city's architectural design standards as adopted in 2001 prohibit pole signs unless installed in industrial zones. Some sign poles exist in commercial areas, especially in historic areas, that no longer have a sign and could not be repurposed with a new sign under these standards. Tourist signs such as the Kingman Visitor Center monument sign or the Welcome Arch could not be completed under these standards. The commissioners will discuss whether there is an interest in creating an exemption or exemptions to the design standards.
So if you've seen newer construction in Kingman and the signs that they have, they're much more monument style. So it's a complete footer that goes up to the sign as opposed to a sign being on a pole. Many of the historic buildings and businesses had pole signs. That is the nature of how architecture was done at the time when Route 66 in downtown Kingman was developed. So we have a lot of poles out there, or empty sign cabinets on poles along Route 66 and in our historic areas. And I know we think of this as historic downtown, but really Route 66 going all the way up to the I-40 interchange, that's historic. And there's many historic structures on there. So just looking at a quick glance of what we have along Route 66 and in our historic downtown, these are poles that are missing, and you'll see they have unique architecture that are to the history of the space. And what we are looking for, because we know there's interest from existing businesses to utilize their sign poles, keeping the historic look, the historic nature that matches their building and not losing that history, we wanted to look at possibly making an adjustment in our code that would allow those on existing signs in certain districts, historic districts, to keep those assets here.
Okay. I'm going to look at you over here, Mr. LaFarn, because I know that you have a vested interest in commercial, and we'll kind of hit everybody else.
Well, yeah, I'm just curious, are we looking to grandfather the existing signs in, or are we going to require the property owners and/or businesses to retrofit those signs to conform with the new sign design?
So I think that's a conversation that we've got to have with planning and zoning and see what the common way of going about this is. And it wouldn't clearly be all signs. When they put that code in, there are missing signs on posts down Stockton Hill and up Airway in areas that aren't necessarily historic. But we're specifically looking at areas that are in, or associated with the historic structures, the old diners, shops, hotels, and reutilizing those things. And so obviously you're still going to have to look at engineering, wind shear, all the different things that you'd have with other signs. It still has to be safe and it still has to be up to code. But we're just looking at having the ability to reutilize these existing structures that are historic in nature, instead of wiping those out and then possibly seeing other signage go up that's a mismatch to the structures that they're in front of.
Well, that kind of answered my question. So, I mean, you look up and down I-40, and there's so many different pole signs that are there, and for existing businesses. And one right off the top of my head is obviously the Cal Ranch sign in the back of the store is a huge sign that they made me erect for them. But I mean, are we going to again look at asking them to retrofit those pole signs to something else, or are we just going to allow Cal Ranch to keep that pole sign as it is?
Any pole signs that are existing are already grandfathered in. I'm talking about posts that don't have a sign, or cabinets like
Abandoned
these.
signs, essentially.
Exactly.
And there's
Yes.
several of those.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, that answers my question. All right. Thank you.
Would this also allow for new pole signs by historic buildings, or this is just to retrofit, like to establish these abandoned signs?
Potentially. So when we're looking at our Art in Public Places program, and if the program does come back and say, we want to see more neon signs, like we did with the heart sign, then yeah, we would have instances where we might have new signage going up that is on poles, but it's matching the historic nature. So yes, it could potentially be impacted by new signage as well.
I guess it would be determined by what an industrial zone is versus a tourism or historic zone.
Right, so industrial zones are exempt. They can have pole signs put up, but we're specifically looking at the commercial space, at least with these posts, that are in the historic downtown or along Route 66.
Well, is a historic motel in an industrial zone, or is it a commercial
No, that'd be
zone, or
commercial.
is it something else?
Commercial zone.
It's a commercial zone.
So
it's
there are
C2.
industrial zones, say behind like where Jack in the Box and the Terrible Herbst is. Those are industrial spaces where industrial activity takes place, and pole signs could be erected in that area. But in commercial space, that's currently our code does not allow that.
So you might want to add a tourism or a historic space as well as commercial or industrial or something like that.
We would work with planning to come up with parameters
Some
on what
kind
that
of
would look like.
Discussion, okay.
Are you looking for a motion here, or are we?
Yeah, I think
Because
that
I
you're-
think
I
it's going to be a little difficult to come up with something without a concrete.
Yeah, I think just the motion to pursue, investigate with planning and zoning on this concept of, reusing these signs, as well as, and like Josh mentioned, in the future, if we have a special neon sign we want to put along Route 66, you need a pole for probably that. So we'd have to get an exemption at that point. So I think it's our intention to look at this process, make sure you guys are aware of it, support it, and that you're part of that process.
I think there's a couple different factors here. I think that, the existing signs that are, I'm going to call them abandoned, that are not being used, I think that those certainly should be addressed. Any future development of a sign under the new codes and ordinances, if people want a pole sign, or they need a pole sign for structural purposes and like, through engineering requests and requirements, you can, and if it's the pole that we're offended by, or we want to try to improve the look of that, there's different ways to modify that pole or cover that pole to make it look more attractive with sheet metal and stuff. And monument signs, have put 1 million of them up over the years, and they're basically pole signs that are modified with sheet metal and and some of them are stucco or whatever other element, but you can make the pole sign look a lot better if you modify it with another product, you know.
Okay, so, to move this, are we feeling in favor of this and in moving it as far as for, to have the, what do we call this, the economic development staff work with the planning, no? Who does code? Code enforcement?
It would be planning and zoning.
It would be planning and zoning, okay, thank you. In order to come up with some potential exemptions or amendments to the current design standards, see what they come up with.
Yeah, I would make a motion to that, yeah, if you
Okay.
would do that. I think you might have just did.
Yeah, well, I was trying to figure out how to get the pieces together here. Okay, so I motion that the economic development team work in conjunction with planning and zoning to explore, that's a good one, the city's architectural design standards pertaining to pole signage, in particular pole signs, in order to create an exemption or exemptions to the design standards for pole signs in commercial and historic areas.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, I think our last item is going to be I, upcoming conference opportunities from Mr. Bradley. Okay. That means our time is over.
Yeah, well, we got close. We accomplished a lot. It looks like he's getting it. We appreciate. I think we've got it down. Yeah. Okay. So just appreciate your guys' time. Just want to close this out with talking about conferences. We've got 3 conferences in this budget, fiscal budget cycle. And wanted to just, in the past, commissioners have attended these conferences. So we want to open it up to the commission to discuss who would be interested in attending these. We have the Arizona Association for Economic Development Spring Conference coming up in April 22nd through the 25th in Tucson. We have the international, and so the AAD is the state agency that handles economic development for cities, other communities where they will bring new concepts, ideas, discussions around economic development and what are best practices in the state. There's the International Council of Shopping Centers, the ICSC, and that's in May 18th through the 20th in Las Vegas. It's basically the retail side of conference. And then there's the Arizona Governor's Conference on Tourism, July 16th through the 18th in Scottsdale. So we do have enough in our budget to send 3 commissioners, 1 to each of these events. And so we wanted you guys to discuss, your availabilities, who might be interested in attending those events.
Got it. Question about these events, or anybody that have any dibs that they'd like on any particular event?
I would be interested in attending the retail conference in Vegas.
Okay.
Okay.
I've attended it before, so I've been there a couple of times.
All right.
I previously emailed Lisa back and said I would be interested in the governor's conference in July.
Okay.
So,
And I could take the economic development in Tucson. I've always wanted to go, so.
All right.
Okay. Everybody good with that? Okay, easy.
I appreciate your guys' time today.
Very
and-
decisive.
Yes, so, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start and go from left to right, and then I'll have myself. Any announcements by commission members? Let's do these items together. Announcements and requests for future meeting agenda items.
None from me.
None from me this time.
A couple of weeks ago, I had a chance to spend a couple hours with the Kingman robotic team on a Saturday when they were working on their next project. I was incredibly impressed with what they've done. They're clearly already learning to become engineers, mathematicians, computer scientists. They're drawing from all of the Kingman high schools. They have not only set the bar in statewide competitions, but they're also killing the competition. The thing is, they need a little bit of funding for travel, just so that they can continue to pursue what they're doing, which they're learning quite a bit, and frankly, watching their teamwork was also incredible. Great teamwork there. They're representing Kingman as the finest. So for a request for future agenda items, we should talk about if we're going to pursue yet again next year an ASU project.
Thank you. Wendy?
None.
Tasha?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of announcements. The Kingman Tourism Stakeholders Meeting is Friday, the 28th at 9 a.m. at the Powerhouse. MCC has a Leadership Excellence Academy. They're trying to put together for hospitality, restaurant, and tourism. If you want to reach out to one of the economic development staff, I can put you in touch with either Gina Kremper with MCC or Joe Thornberry. We're looking for at least 2 or 3 more people to make that go. And the Kingman Chamber of Commerce Business and Government meeting will be upcoming on March 6th at 7:30. And for future, I don't remember what my request was now, so I will email that out. Any other things for today? Yes, sorry, that is 7:30 a.m. and that is at the Beale Street Center, the MCC and Chamber of Commerce building. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.